I'm not Leonard Maltin, but this is a Century of Cinema, a presentation we offer at the historic Plaza Theater on the first and third Wednesdays of each month, except December. In 2023, we opened the Century of Cinema to the general public and have attracted over 25 first-time presenters. Their presentations were so good, we invited some to join us here. Up next, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Here's Jarrett Kakenmeister.
We're going to go over some of the history behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, how it was made, and some of the cool facts that I've only just learned, even though I saw this when it came out back in 1990. It all started with a comic book, and the original comic book was actually pretty gritty and dark and grim, and it felt familiar to some people who were into comic books, because it was actually a parody of Daredevil. So the whole Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle thing started when Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird met because they loved the comics and the art of comic book artist Jack Kirby. In their little New Hampshire apartment, Eastman drew a short, squat turtle standing on its hind legs with nunchucks to try and make Laird laugh. And Laird wrote Teenage Mutant over it, and after that, it was history. They spent the next 3 or 4 months fleshing things out, like the backstory, and what they do, and everything like that. And they ended up doing a direct parody of Daredevil and Marvel's New Mutants, which were really popular comics at the time. If you know anything about Daredevil, Matt Murdock is blinded by a toxic chemical, which is the same chemical that turns the turtles into mutants. The mentor in Daredevil is named Stick, so his parody was a rat named Splinter. The villains in the Turtles are called the Foot Clan, which is a play on the evil ninjas in Daredevil called the Hand. They figured Japanese names were a little overkill for the Turtles, so they got out an art history book and named the characters after famous artists. To get publishing going, they actually got a loan from one of their uncles and founded Mirage Studios, which is also a play because Mirage was just their living room. It wasn't really there. That's how they got started on the comic book side. On the movie side, there were two kinds of people. People who liked the comic books and wanted the movie to stick to the comic books, and the cartoon watchers. The cartoons were my favorite part. I didn't know much about the comic books. They were much more kid-oriented and fun-spirited, with different character personalities you could root for. And the toy sales were going very well, because the cartoon was mainly there to be an ongoing toy ad, just like G.I. Joe or other series at the time. There were the comic readers who liked their dark story and the cartoon watchers who liked their fun story. So to find a medium between the grit and the grin, the soundtrack was awesome. If you've never heard it, that's what you guys were just listening to. The rap song goes through the entire plot of the movie. So what you get is a movie nobody wanted to produce. That's right, we ended up with a movie that all the major film companies turned down because He-Man, Masters of the Universe had flopped so majorly. Another toy-selling cartoon that was doing well, but the live-action movie adoption was a major failure at the box office. So all the studios were of the opinion, no, we don't want another one of those. Because this wasn't like Batman or Superman. There wasn't an obvious way to make a movie out of this. The duo eventually found Golden Harvest, who famously made Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan movies back in the 70s. So they took up the challenge. They didn't have a great big budget. The final budget was $13.5 million. But through sheer will and determination, they got through and got this movie produced. New Line Cinema stepped in halfway through the production to pick it up, and it turns out that it would gross over $202 million globally. That's a 1,496% return on investment. What made this movie great was the animatronics. What's awesome about this movie is that it's all live, so people in suits doing stuff. Back in the Sesame Street days and the early Star Wars, everything was actually a puppet, not just CGI'd. In the unaltered original Star Wars, all the characters in the cantina were all real puppets and props. So all these turtles were are actually actors in a costume. They had two kinds of suits. They had the dialogue suit, which is this crazy looking mask that portrayed all the facial expressions. They had 3 people just on the head making all the emotions and all that stuff. Which means the guy inside, he couldn't really see a whole lot. So he had to move around on the set with various physical markers and other prompts and just trust the plan. But that mask is what makes it great. This is because of Jim Henson, who was the art of everything back then. He did the Dark Crystal, the Labyrinth. He is the master of lifelike puppetry here. Lots of material science, lots of developing the foam and all that. They developed an entire new system just for this movie. And I think, in my opinion, that's what makes this movie so great compared to all the other movies that started to go CGI. So here's a comparison. The turtles look pretty cool in that reboot, but they're not really there. It's like Hulk in the Marvel movies. He's not there, just CGI'd in. And at some point, your brain checks out and just accepts it. But with these actual costumes, you have to think, how in the world did they get that to happen? Because you know it's a physical thing, showing all those emotions. I love the cartoons and all, but this stuff is just great, and it really made the turtle heroes come to life. Unfortunately for the actors, when putting the suit on, it looked a little bit torturous. It was filmed in North Carolina, not in New York. They did some of the stuff in New York, but they recreated the sewers and all the other scenes on set. And these suits got up to 140 degrees in the heat out there. Between scenes, you'd see somebody blowing air into the mouth, and you'd think, oh, they're just trying to cool them off. No, it's because there wasn't enough airflow to keep oxygen flowing in and the carbon dioxide flowing out, so they had to give them oxygen so they wouldn't faint. Sometimes the actors would start to get panicky and claustrophobic, but the head had been glued on so it looked good. So if they were having a panic attack, they had to wait for the techs to unglue the head so they could get out and calm back down through to make an awesome show. Some of the new stuff I didn't know, the actors that played the turtles had cameos in the movie as various side or background characters.
Yeah, 122 and an 8. 122 and an 8. Terrific. Where the heck is 122 and an 8?
My favorite is that Raph watches himself roll across the taxi and asks, what was that?
What the heck was that?
Looked like sort of a big turtle in a trench coat. You're gonna look out of you, right?
Also, the merchandising. You don't get enough interest and enthusiasm to make this movie without the toys. The toys were awesome. I had some of them, my neighbor had a ton more. It was great for us latchkey kids who got home and needed something to do. You watch the cartoon, and you go play with your friends and the toys to have your own adventures. There was always something new because the cartoon always came out with these crazy new characters they could make into new toys. And they were really good, actually. When the movie came out, the toys were third behind G.I. Joe and Star Wars. They ended up peaking at $650 million in sales in 1990 because the movie came out, double the year before. I was going through my old toys recently and I realized I didn't have a ton of these because I was a teenager at the time and kind of getting out of toys. But the ninja part kind of stuck with me and a few of my friends. I actually had this poster with the nunchucks pinned to my wall in the basement, and I was religiously looking at it and thinking I should practice that tomorrow. So I never really got good at it. But I did have some nunchucks, and I was able to recreate a scene in the movie after watching it in slow motion on VHS for a bit. While my friends and I thought we were more like the stick figures here fighting, there were many times it ended up more like this. Enjoy one of my favorite childhood movies. When you watch it, remember that this is like a lost art. People don't get into these costumes anymore, but this was state-of-the-art stuff back when this was made. So with that, please enjoy Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Thanks, Jared. Cowabunga, dude. Be sure to visit the gorgeously restored Plaza Theater and our 38-foot wide movie screen, 4K laser projection, and a world-class surround sound system. Visit myplazatheater.com for showtimes and events. The historic Plaza Theater is located in beautiful downtown Miamisburg with unlimited free parking, shops to browse, and fabulous nearby dining options. We hope to see you at the Plaza.